Hello everyone and welcome back to Wicked Reading. Today I will be reading a continuation of The Rat. This was once again requested by the author, which I want to greatly thank you for reaching out to me as many times as you have to request for me to read your work. I really do appreciate it. The 9 months that followed could be described in many ways, the simplest being difficult. News and media outlets contributed to the mass hysteria that erupted around the rat, often propagating fear at the creature that had been cruelly devised. Many wanted it dead, even in the face of cold hard facts that what they desired was impossible. Some activists put forth that the rat was a poor animal who didn't know what it was doing, and thus should be treated humanely, in both word and action. With the public's tendency to hate anything abnormal to the status quo, the creature was ultimately viewed as a vile monster. When the public's fears had been at an all-time high and tensions at their breaking point, the government made the conscious decision to abandon the town completely, foregoing any acknowledgement of its existence. A buffer zone was created around it, guarded 24/7, and efforts were made to curb the radiation that leaked out every now and then. Anyone foolish enough to try to travel to it would either be imprisoned or shot on sight. It was for everyone's greater good, though some people couldn't fathom that. There were the occasional folk who tried to sneak in, usually urban explorers or those simply fascinated by the circumstances of the town's degradation. They would always be found dead in the woods, contorted and mutated in gross, sickly ways, even if they took the proper precautions. None of them even reached the town. Sebastian and Ruth made the trek themselves, even reaching the outskirts. Through the trees, peering through the eye holes of their gas masks, they observed the silent ghost town. The streets were littered with the remains of the town's at-risk population who had perished at the hands of violence, illness, and mutations. It was a wasteland where humanity had no place. This was the domain of the rat, the creature who, some say, had taken up the role of protector and destroyer. Sebastian and Ruth took photos, but there were no signs of the rat. They were discovered by the guards, who arrested and had them both imprisoned. Quite sternly, they were told to stay away, even if they knew what was good for them. Even as Sebastian recorded increasing levels of radiation, this went voluntarily unheard. When everyone was trying to figure out things in the long term, within the town itself, through guard towers, barbed wire, machine guns, the rat continued to live. It feasted upon the dead, human or otherwise. Nothing else lived besides it. Occasionally, it would return to the sewers, where it once belonged as a tiny little mammal, blissfully unaware of anything beyond its natural existence. Plenty of food was available down there in the form of its brethren rats. The rat would often drink the contaminated water, now a puke-colored brown, sludgy and bubbling, some faint, psychedelic rainbow streaks in it. It was almost like a Jackson Pollock painting. Sometimes the guards would hear it screech, making their goosebumps rise up out of their skin. Everyone was under the assumption that the rat's features had stabilized into its current form, beyond some minor differences courtesy of the at-risk individuals fighting it, causing it harm, and thus forcing it to mutate. While this was, in fact, the case, something else happened. Something unprecedented. One foggy night, excruciating pain struck the rat. It hit the creature hard, mainly because it had become accustomed, for just a moment, to peace. Everything about the rat began to fluctuate, its body widening and extending to extreme lengths, its bones and muscles repeatedly breaking, ripping, and tearing. The creature vomited copious amounts of the contaminated water mixed with blood as it writhed around. It jerked its head back, its vomit flying high in the air and landing back onto it, burning the skin and fur right off its body. Naked, devoid of fur and skin once more, and steaming with its own vomit, the rat grew to nearly 20 feet in size in all of 10 seconds. Trying to lumber forward but unable, the giant meat being screamed up at the sky, causing the guards to wake up. They rushed up the guard towers and tried to locate the source of the noise, but they saw nothing through the intense fog. One guard tried to radio those on another guard tower, but all he got back was violent coughs and mumbling static. Not long after, he and his fellow guards smelled something putrid. They began feeling horribly ill. They coughed up blood and phlegm. Their mouths foamed. They grew pustules, tumors, boils, and extra limbs. They uncontrollably urinated and defecated all manners of fluids, all within a matter of minutes. Before each and every one succumbed, they heard loud screeching and saw a jerking and spasming heap of meat through the fog. After what felt like so much time, yet wasn't at all, the rat's form finally stabilized again. Its snout long, its ears huge. With its long sausage-like tail swaying behind it, the creature tried to stand on its back feet, which felt like trying to remove 100-pound weights while being submerged in water. It tried desperately to keep itself upright until it was able to balance. Slowly, clumsily, the rat stumbled forward, dragging itself along, the malfunctioning circulation to its feet flaring up and down in a constant rhythm. The creature's every step felt like an eternity, a trip to the other side of the earth. Its destination was truly nowhere. The world had not known true chaos yet. Everyone's blood ran cold once they witnessed the horror that came to light. It was beyond comprehension. The mass of red muscle carved in white bone marbling, lumbering through the forest and into human-inhabited areas. The rat passed animals, like those of squirrels, chipmunks, deer, and birds, who would rapidly mutate in a few short minutes. When the creature reached a local highway, its very presence caused traffic to come to a grinding halt. Initially, people were too stunned to move. A whole slew of contrasting emotions flooded their minds, none of them sure what to think. The rat looked down at them, its eyes dry from being unable to blink. It let out slow, garbling squeaks and bellows. What snapped the humans out of their daze was the creature beginning to heave, like it was coughing up something. Then it let out a loud shriek, so loud, so high-pitched, so powerful, that it burst and ruptured everyone's eardrums and rattled their bones. They tried to run, but their impending mutations made that action futile. The rat encountered a new town, barreling through suburban areas and neighborhoods. Homes and other structures tumbled to the ground, often trapping its inhabitants within them. The screaming was horrific, and the crying was even worse. The town's emergency preparedness protocols were tested to their limits, but even these were rendered completely useless. People tried to flee with no cars. They couldn't get to a hospital or a shelter, because there were none anymore. In a short amount of time, they began to mutate and die. Sometimes the rat would burst in multiple places, causing blood, muscle tissue, and bone fragments to spew out in every direction. It would then regenerate the missing pieces bit by bit. Other times it would stop, trying to readjust itself, begin its balance. It took many trials and errors until the rat managed to learn how to do so properly. In a day, it took something and made it nothing. All the sirens and warning sounds stopped, putting everything at a standstill. The only sounds were the drift of plastic bags floating through the wind or pieces of destroyed buildings falling down to the ground. Emerging on what was once a utility road, the rat collapsed, squealing in agony as its body tried to endure another mutation. The creature's size went up by nearly 70 feet, growing back the gray fur it once possessed. Its skull bulged and swelled, widening its eyes with it, and its insides rearranged and contorted in all different directions. The rat's teeth grew longer, sharper, cutting its gross tongue as it dragged itself along and causing the blood to fall down to the ground below. Its needle-like claws shredded the asphalt and cement beneath its feet. With full control over its tail, the creature whipped it back and forth, destroying the ruins of other nearby buildings even further. When its new form stabilized, the rat looked up at the sky, its head tilted to the side, its teeth grinding together, its blood leaking out of its eyelids, mouth, and ears. The creature looked down at itself, bellowing so loud it shook everything around it. With all the pain coursing through its body, the rat was in a sort of shock. All it did was stare at itself, bellowing, squeaking. Rest assured, it did scream. The rat destroyed everything in its path. Massive waves of people died in the carnage. It had evolved the ability to dig, mainly to get away from the bullets and missiles being shot at it. This way, it could travel somewhere in an instant, leaving everyone only guessing at its location. No longer mindless, the creature was becoming at least somewhat sentient. All it knew besides pain was that the little ants beneath its feet were why it was like this. The cause, humans, and effect, pain. Two very simple notions to base an objective on. Weed out the cause to negate the effect. That was its objective. This may not make sense to us, because obviously weeding out the cause of the effect doesn't negate the effect. However, to something that suffers endlessly, making the cause feel the effect is a remedy in of itself. It took a lot of time and a whole lot of attention seeking for Sebastian and Ruth to make this apparent. The rat was simply taking its revenge. Out of all the emotions it could theoretically feel, only two boiled up at the surface: pain and hate. Everything the military tried failed horribly. It was impervious to everything from bullets to missiles to thermonuclear warheads. There was a sort of beauty in its destruction, but there were no pretty flowers. People needed a solution, lest it be too late. They had to save themselves in one way or another. Nothing could be truly invincible. Technology had advanced to new heights. What would kill the rat? It was the most obvious question to everyone's minds. No one had answers. Eventually, they found the only weapon it was susceptible to: its own kind. In a daring and international operation, an artificially created bioweapon that was forced directly into the rat, one that would impede its ability to mutate any further and would rapidly decay its cells. Very much a suicide mission. Those who took part knew that it was likely they wouldn't return. Many volunteers were horrifically mutated, but it worked. The rat was killed, but no one realized that they breached the point of no return the second the idea was even conceived. After its death, the creature's decaying body hosted a sort of mutagenic disease, one that carried on living. As Sebastian stated, it would live in some way, no matter what. Combining this with the bioweapon that was launched into the rat, it worked to decay every bit of its new host and mutate them into new versions of the creature, like asexual reproduction into its offspring. The disease was spread every way possible, and could mutate an entire body in under 30 seconds. No one lived to see their new forms. At first it was thought the only way to stop it was to kill those who had it, but the disease worked even in death, and those who died reanimated. Something new made its home within the human race, intending to transform us into what it was, mutating us to death and rebirthing as one of it. In the end, the rat accomplished its objective. Its fundamental existence was a doom spiral, because we were the cause, and the effect is killing us. We inflicted the pain, the discomfort, and the torture, and now it's being spat back at us with a vengeance.